Okay, let's carry on a little bit more here. So a couple of things we need to sort of do before we kind of go any further with at least the surface that we've been sculpting on so far. We'll do the collar here, but we do need to tackle what these straps are doing a little bit later on before we resume what we were doing in the other areas. So over here on the collar, we're going to do very much the same idea that we did with the major surface. Let's mask all that off. Hang on. There we go. We'll mask that off. Okay. So we're going to start with the edge here. This edge is going to be rather tall because it's folded over the rest of the fabric. Okay, so that's going to start quite high up, if you like, something like this. Okay, now it is being affected a little bit by this kind of cravat area here, so that's unfortunate. Let's undo that. Okay, there we go. So all the way up. There you go. Okay. No problem. So essentially we're just going to do these long strands here. Okay. Just going to be nice and long like that. Something simple. You could also do a few, I guess, kind of crisscrossing a bit. Depends what takes your fancy, really. But there's not going to be too much folds there. We're just going to be lightly suggested, and we're going to basically leave it like that. Okay, that's the idea there. Alright, and then same with the collar up here, and I am repeating myself a little bit, but we are going to go quite thin as we're near the edges of the collar, like so. And for this, we could really do with going up another subdivision level. Now, for this collar here, you can sort of do... if we think about the main point here, if this is the thickest part up here, and when it falls down here, you are going to get like a kind of crease like you do around the kind of areas here. So you're going to get quite a lot of loose fabric here, as it just kind of tries to sit and then it bends, essentially. Okay, so you can get quite a few, I'd say smaller creases, nothing too major, but some sort of smaller creases around there per se. Okay, and then maybe do the same here, just carrying it on a little bit. And at this point in time, we're just doing these big folds. Okay, so we'll keep the same ideas we've been doing around the rest of the vest. That worked out quite well last time. Let's keep with that idea. And of course, you know, do a few strokes backwards and forwards just to keep the collar looking, well, a bit more realistic, not completely solid and flat, because obviously the collar is not solid, it's fabric still. It's just a very solid kind of fabric, if you know what I mean. Okay, so let me just keep that going. Don't get too small. It might be tempting to go small in some sections early on, but let's just keep that flow that we established with earlier. Again, prioritizing the very top points there, and then just from there, kind of feeling out any other potential areas. I can see something there, for instance. Okay, maybe a small one there. Just kind of... not bad. So kind of long, uninterrupted strokes at the moment. Start thin at the edges and then just sort of pull away from them, or stroke away from them. Okay, right, so we're starting to get to the point where it's clipping a little bit, so it's masked off. Let's use this opportunity to just standard brush ourselves clear of the layer underneath. Okay, right, you know what comes next? Small standard brush now, and we'll just come in and just refine some of these areas a little bit more. Just draw any particular highlights that we want to there. Okay, the edge needs to be kind of chunkier a little bit. Not too chunky, but chunkier. Okay, we've got one here. So using the smaller strokes, you can turn these bigger general folds that we had earlier into smaller kind of little subsections, if you like, that can spring out and shoot off into different areas of the collar. Okay, it can be a bit difficult to kind of keep track of all this, so you have to keep moving your mesh around just to sort of see where a lot of your folds sometimes go. They can get lost in the highlights sometimes. It's all perfectly natural. Okay, a little bit more in there. That looks quite nice. Okay, cool. So what looked like a very bland collar from earlier now has quite a bit of detail to it now. Okay, we've got that nice detail in there now just by adding in a few folds here and there. I'm just going to go around, just try and keep this uppermost edge here quite consistent, going all the way around. Okay. Just to try and make sure it doesn't look too chunky in any particular given area. And then now we can use the pinch tool and just make some refinements to the thickness of the overall collars sections. Okay. And you can do the same for the top because that's pretty chunky at the top. Okay. Okay, so we're starting to get that much more look like fabric looking effect there. That starts to look a lot better now. So if we bring back the rest of the character, we can see what that looks like now. Okay, and I think you agree it's quite a big change. The only other section we haven't really touched is here. This is quite a strange area, but essentially we've already got some guidelines. We can see what's happening there. You're basically going to carry on that idea here. So it's just going to be kind of a little bit loose in here. You could even, there you go, just as it kind of curls up there. Just basically do some vertical lines that sort of curve down and away from the top of the collar there. Okay, that's all you need to do to address that area there. Okay, fabulous. So this is interesting what's going on here. We've got quite a lot of layers wrapped up in themselves. So let's just take the time to use the Move Topological brush now and kind of separate these layers from one another. It's probably going to be quite tricky because they are very, very thinly aligned with each other. So it probably will be quite, like for example, this sector here. Although really, does it affect a lot of it? No, it doesn't. It's all on the inside, so it's not something that we have to be too concerned about. There we go, that should be fine. It's not ideal, but it's not really going to affect the mesh in the long run, so we don't have to worry about it. Okay. I think you start to agree that that's looking quite alright. It's looking a lot better than what it was previously. Now, a couple of little adjustments. We've done the kind of collar section there. We can start to look at some of the other areas. So what I want to do here is just make sure at the lower subdivision level that I've got everything, you know, where I'd like it to be. So I think, for example, this section here, I might want to make the collar area a bit tighter and just basically bring that over a bit more. And you can see I'm upsetting a lot of what we've done, but I'm just going to shift it around ever so slightly, just to get a bit more of an effect I'm looking for with that kind of fold over, because I wanted to kind of cross, obviously. You know, I don't want it to just look like it's going vertically down. I do want it to look like it's sort of crossed over. Okay, just something like that. And in that same vein, if I solo it out, I do want to take the time now to basically remind the mesh that, hey, these are two separate parts. Okay, so this line here should basically go down there somewhere. It's a little bit off center now, so we're going to have to go back to the lower subdivision level. We'll use the move topological brush, and we'll just kind of move this guy a little bit over, just so that he's a bit more in line with this line at the top. There we go. And let's take our damn standard brush, and we're just going to do a very sharp cut here. Okay, so from there almost, we're just going to do a line up there. So feel free to be a bit more generous with your intensity this time. Okay, and switch between using the alternate form of the damn standard and the regular form. Just kind of cut in a seam there. Make it pretty deep, because it is the kind of folding point of two separate pieces of fabric. Don't worry too much about the topology if it goes a little bit bonkers at this point. That's not a big deal. Just want to move that. Okay, and of course use your pinch brush to tidy up that area like so. Okay, so that looks like it's continued on there. Now, that leads us nicely onto where these straps are going to go. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to recreate them, because these have been pushed around a lot there in a lot of different areas you might not want them to be in and things like that. Okay, but we've got to decide where they're going to come from. So if we bring back this reference here, well, I said I quite like the way this looked. So we're going to start a bit further over and going across. I know that hasn't really explained things very well, but if we go to our vest here, solo it out, let's just pretend we were going to paint these straps on and how far they'd go across, so that we're happy with the length and the size of a strap, let's say. I think that is quite okay, but you can see it's quite a bit further than I had initially created them. Okay, so we're going to have to come over a bit more. So we'd want our straps, or I want my straps, perhaps something like that. Okay, so quite well over this time. So what we're going to do for this here is we will have to create another subtool. We're going to have to make a dummy vest. We'll just delete the lowers and highers, and we'll go for the same thing we've been using the whole time, which is the, you could use a curve flat snap, although that can have mixed results, honestly, sometimes. Yeah, it doesn't really quite have the thickness that we want, so let's stick with the usual. We'll go to the IMM curves. I don't know why this vest is still here. Go away. And we will use the, I'll use the wide strap. Okay. So, the masking has gone, unfortunately. Is it on the original? Nope, I got rid of that as well. What an idiot. Very smart. So I believe it was something like this. Oh, hey, that's gone on the other side. Hey. That little gap's causing a bit of a problem, so let's draw it somewhere further down here. We'll draw it longer than we need it to be, always, of course. Okay. There we go. So there's our first sort of strap. Okay. Now we're not going to create any others. We're just going to create the one because we're going to duplicate it. Okay. So now that we've got our strap, we'll go to polygroups and we'll auto groups these. And we're just interested in keeping the strap on this subtool. So when we do it that way, we can hide the rest of the mesh, modify topology, and delete it. And now we can bring back the real vest. There. Okay. So let's use the move tool. We'll move it into position a bit better. And there you have it. Okay, so we want 3 straps altogether. We'll hide the ones we've currently got. So where are these going to go? So I think, ultimately, it's going to finish about there. Okay, so let's just keep that mask where it is. And we will just use the rotational tool or the gizmo. Let's bring it to over where it is here. And we'll essentially just rotate that into the mesh. Like so. Okay. Don't worry if you can still see a bit of it there. That's fine. We'll address that in a minute. And then over here, same thing. We have to elect a proportion of this. That's going to get tucked away as well. Okay, so rotate. Let's go over here. Just rotate that back into the mesh. Like so. Okay, that's a good length. I like the look of that length, that's fine. So what we're going to have to do now with this is we're going to have to account for this change. So with this strap, oh, I forgot it's an actual subtool by itself, so that's fine. There we go. Let's just make sure we can push it up against the actual vest itself. Nice and tight. It's not loose. There we go. Okay. So what we're going to have to do with the vest now, we're just going to have to create some areas, some holes basically, that this strap kind of comes out of. So if we go to our vest here, the easiest way to do that on the lower subdivision levels, maybe subdivision 2, is just do straight lines like this. Okay, kind of flies a little bit in the face of what we've just done here, but this is necessary, so we can't really argue about it. We're just going to have to create these natural areas that the strap is going to kind of cut into. Okay, and of course we have to get rid of any folds that are kind of arguing with the trajectory of the strap at the moment. Okay, so if we bump up to a higher subdivision level, you can see that's what it looks like there. Okay, fabulous. Right, okay, so I would say for now, get the strap, at least one strap working the way you like it, like that, kind of put it into the right position where you'd like it to be, and we're basically going to duplicate this process in the next video to try and get these sitting nicely with the rest of our vest, and basically going back to the folds again and seeing how we can fully incorporate these straps back into the vest.